Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my Dark Souls 2 New Game Plus run, where basically we'll be going through New Game Plus, and I will be talking about what I like about Dark Souls 2, what I don't like about Dark Souls 2, and things I would like to see in 3, as well as certain aspects of the lore and things like that. Now, before I start, I would really like to apologize for how long it took to get this particular video out. Needless to say, um, people have noticed that there were some sound issues with the last video, and while not as severe as what I had to deal with the last video, this particular video also had sound issues. For the most part, I was able to edit things to get the sound to match what you see in the video, though there is going to be a part early on where you're going to notice the sound slightly off. But for the most part, I think I got it fixed. However, I did have to do post commentary, and I know some people don't like it that way, but it couldn't be helped with the issues I was having. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, as you can see, Valencia, who's normally here, is no longer here. Because now that we'd beaten the giant, she's now back in Majula, so we will see her there later. Now, we're not going to be going this way. We've already gone this way. And up there is where the pursuer is. I told you guys that before, up there. But we're not going to be dealing with the pursuer there. I'm going to be taking him on in his usual spot. And, by the way, I'm showing off the skyline here for two reasons. One, because I really, really like the color palette and basically the art direction for this game. I know some people complained about it, but I personally enjoyed it. And the second reason is because I guys want you to pay attention to how the sky looks. There's a little bit of foreshadowing going on here, which I will get into probably in another video. But for now, I just want you to note how the sky is a little bit different than the way it was in Majula. So, we're going to go right back down here, and we're going to be visiting Kale the Photographer after we clear this area of the usual goons with our trusty blades. Normally, when I play this game, I already have this area cleared out by the time I deal with the last giant. However, for some weird reason, when going through this playthrough, I forgot to go here first, and so we're dealing with it now. There we got a nice little convenient back attack. And we're going to be dealing with these two idiots again. The two guys who charge at us with no sense of self-preservation. They'll just rush right at us, and we can just chop them right down. By the way, while we're killing these guys, well, while I'm killing these guys, notice the trees around. I mean, I know I had discussed before, touched on the fact that these trees are supposed to be the remains of the giants that were killed here long ago during that war that Vendrick had with them, King Vendrick had with them. But it's kind of funny to me how these particular trees, this one particular tree we're climbing up, and you're probably already hearing the arrow coming at me, and I get hit there, so we got to drop down here. Instead of climbing all the way up, we drop down here to get to down here. This guy. These trees, anyway, are supposed to have been born from the corpses of the giants. Whereas in the first Dark Souls game, the trees seem to have grown out of the ash trees way down below. Not really too sure what the lore significance is of that, or if they changed that somewhat, or if maybe we're interpreting where the trees came from kind of wrong. By the way, you'll notice that I'm carefully taking these archers out with my own bow. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you're going to be playing Dark Souls, it's always a good idea to have some type of long-range backup when you play. And especially if you're a dex build like my character is. If you're going to be leveling up dex, there is no reason why you should not have a bow and arrow as backup in case, you know, you got to deal with enemies from afar, or you got to, like, thin out the herd from a distance, or, you know, foil ambush attempts. It's just really important to have a long-range equivalent, or long-range variant. See, like that fool up there. He's very happy to snipe us from afar, so we're just going to give him a taste of his own medicine so he doesn't get a chance to do that to us. See, down he goes. And there's like one more archer that I got to deal with when I climb this ladder. And I will snipe him in the forehead and then go on my merry little way. This is pretty much how I like to clear the area out, very methodically. Sure, I've said to you guys before that when I play Dark Souls, I don't really like to rush through it. I like to take my time and pay attention, because paying attention is what keeps you alive. And now we're going to go with the combat problem that I have with this game, and that's dealing with the spearmen. See there, once again, I tried the shield thing, and once again, I didn't have time to apply the critical hit. So this time I had to get around him. I really don't understand why they did that way. Why give us a move that isn't going to be reliable? I mean, I'm willing to take some blame here and suggest that maybe I was supposed to do that shield bash move when he was in the middle of attacking me, because then he'll stumble a little bit further. But it seemed to me that he was in mid-swing when I did it anyway, and I still didn't have time to apply the critical hit. It's just a dumb freaking move. And this also kind of goes into another criticism I have about the game. It's the fact that they've incorporated so much of Demon Souls. Like that move right there. That move is actually from Demon Souls, not Dark Souls. Dark Souls 1 had a kick instead, which I think was a much more useful maneuver. It was a much better move. You could knock people off cliffs with it, and it was a way to stumble back shields. Here, we're back to that stupid hooking thing that they got from Demon Souls. And in fact, they incorporated several things from Demon Souls into here. And when you do that move, what's supposed to happen is, as I try to demonstrate there, you first hook the shield, and then you do that particular attack. And these spear guys are supposed to be the guys in the game when you first bump into them that are there to teach you how to apply those particular moves. Like in the first Dark Souls, when you first bumped into spear guys, you couldn't just swing at them with your swords like the regular minions. You had to find a way to get around them, or parry their attack, or, you know, knock their shield aside and hit them. Those are the three different ways that you were supposed to take them out. But in this game, well, they got that super tracking, so it's hard to get behind them to attack them anyway. They don't really have much telegraphing of their moves, so it's really hard to parry. And this is not even going into the tight parrying window that you have. And then the shield bash thing, when you try to do that, it doesn't always work for the follow-up. So it's like, I don't know what they were thinking when they implemented it this way. But you end up with a move that is not nearly as useful as it could have been, at least in my opinion. I'm sure there are other people who can apply it much better than I can, but it's unreliable for me. Anyway, down here, as you can see, there's few places to drop, but this is the one spot we can drop, and we get a Titanite shard there. Now, why you would need a Titanite shard in New Game Plus when you already got tons of weapons, well, I have no clue. But it's there, and for those of you who are playing from the very beginning, so you're playing a new game, not New Game Plus, well, the shard will be useful for you. It's an upgrade item for your weapons and armor and such. And to be fair, even a New Game Plus Titanite shards could probably be useful if you decide to level things up. Here, you guys are probably noticing, by the way, the sound is slightly off. I apologize for that. It will be back to normal by the time we get back to Majula, I believe. But right now it is slightly off. It's not nearly as bad as it was earlier before I edited this, though. But I apologize for that. Shadowplay is just giving me a hard freaking time. Ugh. Anyway, we are now about to bump into what I like to call the Indiana Jones trap. You can hear the rock come down. And honestly, if you get killed by this trap, just put the controller down or play something else. Because really, as long as you're paying attention, there is no reason whatsoever you should get killed by that. The rock is already rolling before you even get there. And then not only do you hear it rolling, by the way, there's a pit that you don't want to walk down. That's where the rock goes. But you hear an enemy getting killed as well. So there's no reason whatsoever to ever have to die by that thing. It's too bad it's the only one you see. It's the only rock trap in the game. I would like to have seen more of it. Anyway, this dude over here is Kale the Cartographer. And he's kind of interesting from, you know, from an NPC standpoint, at least in terms of... Well, let's let him talk.
I'm sorry. I was just daydreaming, I think.
I think you're doing more than daydreaming.
My name is Kale. I'm a traveler, like yourself. I'm navigating the continent to create a map. Why cartography, you ask? Well, that's a good question. When I first came into this forsaken land, it was... a curse? Something about
There's something about it, you think?
How embarrassing. I seem to have lost my focus.
You lost more than that.
But I do know one thing for certain. I have always been very fond of maps. I came to this land some time ago. Drangling, the Lost Kingdom. It sounded so romantic. Have you seen Medulla? Well, there's a rather spacious mansion there. I've made it my temporary home. Well, as something of a squatter, I'm afraid. Inside the mansion, I found a strange map, like none I'd ever seen. I believe that it's a map of Dreamland.
Really?
Now I'm traveling the land to prove it. Yes. Yes, that's it. That's why I came to the kingdom. Wait. No. That wasn't it. Then what? I don't seem to recall.
Need to lay off the weed, buddy.
Were you looking for that map? Wonderful. Then you're fascinated by maps. Just
Sure,
like me.
yeah.
Shame on you. You should have told me before. Here, take this. A key to the mansion. What a joy to meet a kindred spirit out here. Incredible, really, isn't it? Such a map to be chiseled in stone. Oh, but one thing. I would not venture deep into the mansion. Now, I can't be certain, but I've heard disturbing noises. Something about it feels wrong. Just be careful, please.
Okay. So,
I'll be back in Medulla soon. Perhaps we will meet again and discuss maps at our leisure.
so yeah, that is Kale, the cartographer. And right off the bat, you can see that he's not exactly all there. He's a bit out of sorts. He's already forgetting why he's here. He's kind of forgetting, like he's losing focus and kind of losing track. And just the way he moves around, like he's shaking a bit and just seems unsteady. You can tell that something's not quite right with the guy. And basically, he's one of the several NPCs who you can see that the curse is taking hold of them. In this particular game, unlike Dark Souls 1, where the curse just simply manifested as you slowly losing your humanity by just simply becoming a hollow, just something that feasts on the souls of other people. In this game, they took it a little bit further, where it's not you just simply hollowing just for the sake, okay, you're just turning into a creature that feeds on souls, and you lose, here, it's like you lose your humanity, not just in physical form, but you lose sense of identity as well, like you lose who you are as a person, which I think was an interesting approach, though I'm wondering if they kind of went a little too much in a different direction here and trying to like expand on what the curse means. And here I'm kind of fiddling around with the inventory because for some idiotic reason I forgot where the flame butterflies were. And yes, I'm using a flame butterfly here to light this little torch thing here because that's what we do. This is Nathaniel. Nathaniel lights fires. I hope you guys have gotten the joke by now. So now we're about to enter into the infamous area of this area. The infamous area of the fort. And I call this the infamous area because for those of you who remember when Dark Souls 2 was first coming out and the trailer came in, man, the sound bad. I promise the sound will fix itself soon. It's messed up here, but it will be fixed in a moment. Just got clobbered there. There we go. That's where my editing actually finally fixed it. Anyway, those of you who... Well, stupid iron guy. There. Basically, that's how you deal with him. You hit him, roll back. Hit him, roll back. Anyway, those of you who remember the demo for Dark Souls 2, the first bit of footage, as you can see, I turned it off, the lights off. And as you can see, it's not that dark down here. You can still pretty much see ahead of you. I'm using Getosado to enhance the graphics, and it does make this place a little bit darker than the base game, but you can still see. Whereas when we first saw the footage of this game in this area, when we went down there without a torch, you could barely see anything, and everybody was so excited about that. And then we got the actual game, and, well, we got what we got, and so many people were mad about that. But this is the area that they showed, and personally, it doesn't really bother me all that much. I honestly think that the gutter in this area later on made up for it. It's super dark down there, and it can be pretty hard to navigate. And besides, with all the craziness going on in this game, it's its own feel. You know, not having the dark areas and not having the extra lighting. It sucks, but not nearly as bad as many people made it out to be. And I personally understand, because I'm one of the people who actually remembered that when they were first making this game, they were making it basically on a PC first, and then they said they were going to be porting it to the consoles, which is kind of funny considering that the console version came first and then the PC version came afterwards. But by the way, I love the way it looks down here. I love the architecture here and just the atmosphere of the place. That's why I was walking around to show you guys. But yeah, I remember that they said that when they were showing the stuff, they were showing it on a high-end machine. But then when they had to port it over to the, you know, the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, they realized that those systems were just too limited to go with the lighting effects that they wanted to go with, so they had to tone it down. And I was kind of expecting that to begin with. I mean, hell, even the current generation consoles right now, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, I'm sorry guys, but they can't really compare to what we can get, you know, on PC. My freaking GTX 660 card is able to do things that the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One can't really do. And I'm planning on replacing this card next year, by the way, so. Anyways, you can see, once again, spear guy, and once again, the only real effective way to deal with him is to try to get around him, though I still ended up getting pegged by those attacks that are non-telegraphed. So here, we're presented with an interesting little combat conundrum. We got an archer over there, we got an ironclad coming at us from the left, and when you open this door, you got an ironclad out here. What I normally do is I open that door to get that ironclad to be triggered, and then I just stand here and fight him here, where I don't have to deal with the archers, and I can keep him at the door. And I just go with the usual thing. I whack and roll back, whack and roll back. It's the safest way to deal with them. And then you got that ironclad there who decided for some weird reason he was just going to shuffle off, so I had to call him. And then that's when I know, oh no, there's another one coming. I was like, oh well, at least I'm going to deal with them all at once. That move gets on my nerves sometimes, where they run towards you, because you're not exactly, at least me, I'm not exactly sure exactly when it's going to come down, when they run towards you to do that slam. But I was soon able to get him back in line. I was trying to be fancy there, though. Instead of rolling back, I thought I would just kind of step back. Nah, that wasn't a good idea. He still died, though, so all was well. But that third guy just disappeared. I noticed that he just kind of, like, fucked off. He was like, oh, whatever, my buddy will kill him. We will deal with him later, but it was kind of surprising to me that that guy just like, oh, my buddy's, he's got him. I can leave now. It usually doesn't happen. So, and that was me again trying to see, where the hell did the ironclad go? Now, these guys are trying to set up an ambush, but it's a rather primitive one, and if you've played a Souls game before, you can kind of see it coming. And he dies. There's a little goodie back here. It's a bastard sword, for those who are interested in those things. One of these days I gotta make a build that uses those type of weapons. And a useless piece of armor. Now you guys are probably wondering why I didn't bother opening that door over there. I normally climb that ladder. If you do decide to go this way and open up this door, well, there's a goon waiting to whack you upside the head on the other side. And while he's easily handled, I'd rather just not deal with it and just go up this way instead. That way we clear the enemies up here and have a better vantage point to snipe at enemies below. So we got another ironclad here, or the rope back as I sometimes call them. Even though I know they're supposed to be more of a turtle shell. And then we just deal with him in the usual way. Whack, roll back. His friend over there was nice enough to wait for us to kill his buddy before taking us on. So we just peg him with a little bit of magic. Whack. So there I actually got away with backing up. I got the timing better there. Pick up Soul, Nameless Soldier. And then we had to deal with this fool down here. That was the archer that was shooting at us from before, so now we're going to give him a taste of his own medicine with our own bow. I'm going to pluck him with my bow right here. Right in the forehead. I didn't want to get hit by the arrow, but I needed him to roll back, because as you can see, he hit the freaking wall, and now I'm hitting the invisible walls. Which are the bane of my existence in this game. And then finally we get to see the Ironclad. He walked all the way back here. That was surprising to me. I didn't realize he walked all the way back over here. It was kind of weird to me. But he's dead. So it don't matter. So, down here, and then that's the guy who was waiting to whack us upside the head if we go through the door. He's not very observant of his surroundings, is he? So we're able to walk right up and finish him. Now, over here, you may recognize this spot. This is the other side of that gate where we got the Titanite shard. Titanite shard was over there, and over here we get an amber herb and a green blossom. Useful little items. That surprised the hell out of me. I was not expecting this. Because remember, new game, that Phantom's not there. But New Game Plus, well, there he is. And while he has quite a bit of life, he's pretty much just an Ironclad. Whack. I was pushing all up there. But he's pretty much just an Ironclad, so deal with him the way you would deal with an Ironclad. I have forgotten to go into my dual stance. And here's one of the things I don't like about the camera. If you got a wall behind you and you're trying to back up, you're kind of screwed in seeing where to escape to. We still died. But yeah, that was a nasty surprise. But one that I can still kind of appreciate. That stuff like that keeps you on your toes. And he wrecked the walls too, which is also a nice touch because normally you don't see the shattered like that. At least I don't think they're shattered like this in the new game. Maybe they are. I need to go back and find out. Now up here is the leather set, which, if depending on how you're starting the game out and depending on what your armor is when you first start out. Now I was whacking that just to show it wasn't a mimic. We bump into those later. This set's not bad to start out with. And one thing that I really find interesting about the set is that the gauntlets in particular, the leather gauntlets, the leather gloves, are better than a lot of gloves that you will start out with or even find later on in the game. Like, it's like much later that you find better gauntlets than this in terms of light armor. So I tend to hold on to those things for a long time when I first start playing this game, when I start from the beginning. Check them out. Check out the stats for yourself. Now, I heard that. Did you hear that? That sounded like a phantom somewhere coming in. So that's me like, okay, where are you? Where are you? Look, I'm not going to get fooled again. You're not tricking me again. I'm ready for you. See, I'm like looking around, trying to like, where are you? 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 And I don't see anything. Like, I'm checking to see if I'm going to get ambushed in the flame room, the bonfire room. This is where a bonfire is. And nothing. But I could have sworn, I mean, you guys did hear that, right? It sounded just like another phantom came in. And then I heard, oh, and there he was. I have no idea where he was. I'm sure some of you guys who played this game, played New Game Plus, will be able to tell me. But I, for the life of me, had no clue where he dropped down. So I got surprised again, even though I knew he was there because I heard him come in. Not that it was safe, though. Yeah. All that for nothing. You still died. So, pick this up. Another piece of crappy equipment. Now, this area, the reason why it has a bonfire and the reason why it's here is because of this thing. This dead giant corpse tree thing. It's here for... Later on in the game, we need to come down here and deal with this guy. But for now, it's just kind of a mystery. It's a good place to level up in the very beginning of the game, by the way, because you got a bonfire right there and several fairly strong enemies for beginning characters. By the way, I'm looking at the giant's face. That hole there, that characteristic hole in its face. When this game was first being developed, the guys who were developing the game really had no clue. Like, they were still struggling with how they wanted the giants to look. And like you can even see the remnants of that later on in the game when you actually see a lot of giants coming at you. You'll notice a certain dead giant somewhere with a completely different face. A little bit of a mistake that they put in the game because they weren't really too sure what they wanted to go with. What made them finally settle on that hole was one of the designers had noticed, he was looking at old Dark Souls 1 designs and noticed a characteristic hole in the golem's chest, the iron golem. It's got a big hole in the chest. And he's like, that's an interesting little thing. What if we just made a hole for the giant's face? And that's what they finally went with. So, let's now talk to the blacksmith over here, the guy who's finally had his own initiative to get up and walk through his door and set up his equipment. This part might be boring to some of you guys, but I just want to at least show you some of his inventory to show you what you could start out with when you first start the game. Because some of the weapons he has might be useful, and other ones are kind of eh.
You stand back.
By the way, you notice there's not a forge anywhere in sight.
The name's Lenigrast, just a simple blacksmith. And you are,
Hey.
another useless traveler. A man ought to labor with his feet planted firmly in the earth. Not roam around like you flirtatious vagabonds. Oh, what does it matter? Go on, show me what you've got. Your equipment. Let me have a look.
It's like we're a nuisance to this guy, but yet we're the one who gives him the souls he needs to continue doing his job. Ugh. Anyway, as you can see, he sells us quite a few useful items, particularly arrows, which are very useful in the very beginning. You got your wood arrows, which he sells for 10 souls apiece, and it's unlimited. That's the description right there. Now that I'm playing New Game Plus, I don't bother with wood arrows much anymore. I pretty much stick with iron arrows, which are these right over here. So they're very powerful, but not cheap. Be certain not to overuse them. I overuse the hell out of them because I can afford to buy more of them. So once I bump into the second blacksmith, iron arrows are all I work with. And then you got your wooden bolts and your iron bolts. I don't bother with crossbows. I don't think I've ever bothered with a crossbow in any of the Souls games. They pretty much are not... I don't find them to be decent weapons. Now granted, they made them better in Dark Souls 2. I can actually see them being viable in Dark Souls 2, but I still don't bother with them. Here's the longsword, which is your typical basic useful weapon. They made it less useful in this game, but it's still useful. The broadsword, standard decent little weapon. Good for strength builds, I guess, to start out with. Then you get the falchion, which is a rather ugly looking curved sword, but it's got its uses, so sometimes I use them. Sometimes I don't. Then you got the S-Stock. Now the S-Stock, it perplexes me what they did with it in this game. In Dark Souls 1, the S-Stock was a thrusting weapon made for dex users, like this rapier over here, which is pretty much the only really useful dex weapon to start out with. But then they turned the S-Stock into a strength-based weapon for this game. I don't understand why. You got the axe and you got the mace. Axe is fairly useful. The mace is, I think, a bit more useful. And then the spear, which I still think is a really good weapon for beginners to start out with. You got good long range with it, and you can use it behind the shield. Like, you can hold the shield up and then stab from behind it, which, if you're a beginner and you're having a bit of a hard time with the combat, this is a good way to kind of ease yourself into it and still have a level of protection. It's kind of surprising to me that I haven't really bothered to use a spear, considering it's a dex weapon, but I've yet to go through games with spears. I always go through the Dark Souls games with swords. Go figure, right? Me wanting to only use swords. Anyway, there you got your repair powder and you got your titanite shards. Repair powder used to be a lot more important before they fixed the issues that we had with durability. Those of us that were playing this game on PC noticed that our weapons ran out much faster than on consoles, and that's because they, From Software, tied it to the frame rate. And on PC, it's at 60 frames per second, but on consoles, it's 30. So it was a long time before they fixed that, which meant that our weapons were running out much, much faster than on consoles. And so we really needed repair power. Thankfully, that's been fixed. So now here, I'm just kind of going through all my stuff to see if there's anything I wanted to upgrade. But and you can see I got a lot of junk that I need to organize. I know, shame on me. I got a crappy inventory.
Drat. You're worse than my reckless daughter. Don't spend your whole life in transit, you hear? You'll need souls to repair and improve equipment. I know only of smithing, but souls have many other uses as well. Don't waste your souls on useless trinkets. Think before you spend.
Yeah, so he kind of gives us some basic advice for beginners, like, you know, don't waste all your souls. This is what you can use souls for. So it's obvious that, you know, his dialogue in the beginning is to guide the beginner.
Equipment can be strengthened with rare orestone, but such orestone won't come easily. My girl knows her stones, but she's always out prancing about. Now, there's a time for travels, but you can't wander the world forever. Even you must have someone waiting back home.
So that was just repeating.
Drat.
Don't waste my time. Could have some
waste
better
my
stuff.
time.
So anyway, over here, we now have Valencia, our little key thief.
Oh, you again? Come on, it's on the cheap for you.
So she got a couple of useful items herself. As you can see, you got humanities that you can buy. You got your gemstones. You got your amber herbs for magic. Witching urns are good throwing weapons to use in the beginning, good punch. And then you got this new thing they added in called the bright bugs. They basically give a good boost to your stats and your defenses and your strength and stuff. So like for people having a hard time with certain bosses, particularly in the DLC, I think it's about when the DLC came out that these things showed up. The weird thing is, look how much they cost. They're only 6,000. When I was playing the last game, because of how high up I was in level, they were costing much more than that because the price goes up with your level. But then they started out back at 6,000 again, so whatever. Then you got your soul arrows and your healing magic, which, you know, it's decent to start out with. You know, that'd be useful for casters and magic guys who's first starting out in the game. So she has a little bit of everything, which kind of goes with the whole scavenger type of personality. Which again goes with my theory that, you know, in her scavenging, she probably took that dude's key. And also, she's a little bit of a throwback to Dark Souls 1 as well. Her line, "Thank you kindly," is obviously a throwback to the undead merchant from Dark Souls 1, which makes you think that maybe she's a descendant of his. Sorry, you didn't really have anything for me to buy. I already got most of the stuff. What do you want from me? But yeah, it's like they kind of, there's a lot of like throwback stuff that they put into this game. Like she, you know, uses lines from the undead merchant, so maybe he had a descendant, though that's kind of surprising considering that, well, he didn't look like he had a family. So, though, one of the interesting things about this woman is the fact that it's obvious she's been here for quite some time. If you remember in the last video, when I was talking to her, she was talking about when the giants crossed the sea to start some type of invasion that pretty much devastated the land, and she knows a lot about this place.
Everyone's so stingy around here.
As you can see, she's also a bit of a curmudgeon when people don't buy her stuff.
So stingy everywhere. You're my only customer. Don't make me beg. Now buy something.
Okay, I'll buy something. Jeez.
We call this place Medulla. Not too special if you ask me. It's just the place where everyone seems to end up.
That line in particular interests me a lot. Well, not this line. But when she says that this is the place that everyone seems to end up, as we will see, there's things about this place that suggest that it's a little bit more than it seems. Anyway, I'll buy this just to shut her up.
Thank you, kind.
See, there's that line. I really wish they did more with her, like make her deliver more about the lore and the history of this place, because she's obviously been around for a long time to know what's gone on. And she could have given us some useful tidbits about what this place is or what must have went on in it.
Oh, who are you again? again? No, I'm not serious. You do have a rather pleasant scent. The type I'm quite fond of.
And of course, we're talking once again to Shalquar, who I didn't really fully go into the last time. As you can see here, she's the one who watches over covenants, and these are the different covenants I had joined in my last game.
This place is already dead. Everything will crumble and waste away so that something new may be born. Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah, that's one of the lines that pretty much tells you what the premise of this game
This place
is.
is fascinating. We receive only the most peculiar visitors. Folk like yourself. It's enough to keep even a cat amused.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Are you going to see the old ones? Those four who have grown so incredibly ancient. They must have sprouted quite a thick coat of moss by now. For heaven's sake, no one even knows their names anymore. Imagine that.
Yuck it up.
Yes, nothing like yourself. For you have a most pleasant scent that grows nicer with each passing day.
That's an important line. It really is.
Have you made friends with the man by the sea? He's lost everything. Absolutely everything.
And of course that amuses her.
The only thing he's good for now is a few tidbits on covenants. Covenants are a type of, well, contract, you might say. You give something to gain something. That's the way humans like it, right? It might be just the thing you need. But what does a cat know?
Yeah, like I was trying to say before, she does a lot of covenants.
Oddly formed rock behind here?
Sorry.
Long ago they called it Victor's Stone, as I recall. If you wish to face greater challenges, speak to the rock. Although, you'd just as well not.
Yeah, that's one covenant that you might not want to join if you aren't ready for it.
This place is already...
She's just repeating her lines.
Nothing suited you, I presume? Well, that's dismaying.
Anyway, yeah, she's one of the more mysterious type of NPCs, and it's obvious she knows quite a bit about this place, as we will find out later when we talk to her. But she doesn't give up too much information. Just enough to let you realize that she knows quite a bit.
Again. I came from the west, from Volgan.
And then this is the armor guy.
Very competitive, of course. And you have to grease the wheels to get anywhere. But I didn't have the funding for that, so I left home in hopes of striking gold. It's been years since then, and I've made very little headway.
Yeah, poor guy.
I don't even know why I'm still here. Everything's all run down and dying. It's terrible. A business, really. A group calling themselves the Blue Sentinels have gained much power in Volgan. You can't even run a shop without their blessing. They claim to be working for the greater good, but it's absolute hogwash.
Now, that's something I wish they could have expanded on. Really do.
By the gods, why the hell
Yeah,
am I
that's the
here?
last line he says. And then the next time you bump into him,
Well, I did
he's
look
an
at
interesting
you
NPC
again.
because you actually see some character development with him. Like as time goes on, he gets more and more confident. The more souls you give him to buy stuff. That's my cat. Sorry. But he's an interesting character in that you see him developing. You know, like he's getting more and more confident with his wares. But you'll see the curse kind of take hold of him as well. Anyway, this is the mansion, and this mansion intrigues me because it makes me wonder what this place really is. I know the popular theory right now is that what we're really standing on, they say this place is Majula, but what we may be standing on is the remnants of the Firelink Shrine from the first Dark Souls, like, you know, many centuries later. And we'll see a little bit, like, this little tidbits and clues to suggest that that's what this place is. But as for what this mansion is right now, like, you notice all these books and you notice all this stuff, it looks like there's research and stuff that was being done here. So a lot of people have assumed that what this place really is was the mansion of Pharos. Like, this must have been where Pharos was doing his research to make, you know, all those intriguing little traps and hidden doors that we keep finding throughout the game. However, I don't think that's what this place is. And the reason why I don't think that this was the mansion of Pharos at one time is because you don't really see much to indicate that that was the type of research that was going on here. You don't see anything that looks like hidden doors were being made. You don't see anything that looks like contraptions were being worked on. You just see a bunch of books. That's it. I mean, yeah, there's a Titanite shard here and a torch here, but that's it. You don't really see anything to suggest that Pharos was in here. So, my pet theory about this place, by the way, those are those infamous little pigs that I never really mess with when I play here. Do not go into that corner. I don't feel like fighting those pigs. Anyway, my particular theory is that this place probably was where King Vendrick used to be at before he built his castle. And the reason why I'm thinking that is, well, for one thing, this map over there. Actually, I'm first going to get ready to deal with the thing that's creating the noises down there. Remember, Kale warned us about going down further. But notice this map. This is the map of all of the area, of all of the, the game. The map of Drang Lake. And you notice that little fire that was there. That's to tell us where a boss character got killed, or a great soul got killed. Now, you might notice a bit of a difference here, those of you who've played this game in the new game. Instead of one skeleton, there are two. Yeah, they increase the number of skeletons with each new playthrough. You get some human effigies, which are useful, as I will find out later on. And now we light fires, because that's what we do. So I'm looking for my flame butterfly in this mess of inventory equipment. Light down here. Now, notice down here. It's obvious this mansion was built on the remains of something else. There's an Estus Flask shard, which we don't need because my Estus Flask is full. And then there's this chest over here, which right now houses a soul vessel. But when they were doing promos for the DLC and other stuff, it also used to be a place where you can get special weapons and items and things like that. They don't do that anymore, but you used to be able to get like cool, just color variations of certain swords, like a white version of the black katana or a blue longsword and stuff like that. I missed out on some of those, and I kind of regret that. But anyway, look at this place. It's obvious that this mansion was built on top of something ancient. And now look down here. This little broken piece of stuff. You know what that looks like to me? That looks like a piece of the Lord vessel from Dark Souls 1. And it's shattered here. Now, that opens up a whole host of questions as to, well, are we at Fire Lake Shrine? And if so, why is the Lord vessel smashed down here? What's the significance of that? What is the significance of Lord Vendrick's rule? Was he the one who smashed it? Did somebody else smash it before he showed up here? Is this why Vendrick built the mansion above here to research this area? It also could be suggested that because that vessel was smashed, that's why the old souls of the old bosses in the first game are now still roaming the land. Because as we know, for those of us who played this game, later on, we're going to be bumping into certain bosses which have remnants of the old souls within them. The souls of Gwyn, the soul of the Witch of Izalith, the soul of Seath the Scaleless, and I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. The God of Death, Nito, First of the Dead. Could be that smashing of the vessel is what allowed their souls to continue to roam the land and, invade new creatures, but that's all speculation, and the game unfortunately never really tells us. They didn't really handle the whole, keeping certain things hidden too well, because I think they kept a little too much hidden. Whereas in the first two games, the first Souls games, they give you just enough for you to paint a picture. Yeah, you're still asking questions, but not questions that you feel are important ones. Anyway, to talk about, before we move back to this place, I just want to mention that having that mansion there, I really think that was where King Vendrick used to stay at, because remember, they said Vendrick figured out the essence of the soul. And that mansion's built right above what could have been the old Firelink Shrine. Right down to having, you know, the soul vessel smashed down there. You got a couple of skeletons running around there for some idiotic reason, which makes you think that maybe it's built on the remains of the old cemetery from the first Dark Souls. And you do have that giant Victor Stone on the top as well, which could have been the remains of the old cemetery. Like, we don't know. But I think there's enough hints to make us speculate that. So it's also making me wonder if what Majula used to be was an old capital city. Or, you know, the old place where Vendrick and his people gathered at before they fully took over the land, you know? Like, it's obviously used to be a settlement. So it makes me wonder if he first ruled that settlement before he later on built that castle, you know, Castle Drang Lake, which, as we will find out later, isn't like a castle like we'd see in Lordran. Like, you know, Anor Londo, like back in the first game, was this majestic place where, you know, all the gods dwelled and they had all their servants at. Castle Drang Lake is not like that. It's quite different. Anyway, if you notice, I was able to get only one of these guys to come out instead of two. It's a trick that I do, so that I don't have to deal with both of them at the same time. Not that I can't handle it, but why give yourself an extra hassle if you don't need it? So now we're back here dealing with these guys, and as you can see, I'm not even bothering trying to do the whole knock me shield aside crap, because it just isn't very efficient. And we're gonna take this fool out again just because. Now, there was something I kind of forgot to show when I was up here, which is why I'm coming back here again. And of course, we're going to get rid of this guy and trigger the other guy to come down so we won't have to deal with an ambush. And off he goes. And now this guy shows up. And we'll finish him off. There you go. Drop dead like you're supposed to. Now, what I had forgotten to mention when I came here was that this huge freaking sword in hand came from somewhere. It's not as if they built this place and decided to just shove that there. As you can see, there's statues all around here, and that statue's missing a hand. And, well, this is the hand. Which makes you wonder, geez, what the hell must have happened here for such damage to have occurred? Oh, we'll find out later on. We will find out. Once again, notice the skyline. I really want you guys to pay attention to the skyline. Not just because of how beautiful it is, but because, again, there's just a teensy little bit of... They're trying... Basically, where I'm seeing once again one of the tricks that From Software likes to do when you go from place to place. And that's showing the passage of time as you go through the game. They can't seem to do it in real time, so they're doing it in other ways. And I'll talk about that once we go to the next area, which is probably going to be in the next video. So, grab this item here. Life gem. Roll back down here. And this is where I kind of had to deal with a rude surprise. Not one built into the game per se, but, well, you'll see. Now, normally I don't deal with this guy this way. I was just being a bit impatient, but normally I have that guy come down. I leave him down. And you saw that? Yeah. Yeah. I was invaded. And I wasn't expecting it at my level, to be honest with you. At least he was honorable. Like, he didn't attack me while I was in the middle of that. But yeah, I was invaded. I give him a bow. I was not ready for this, because I was just like... I'm thinking, I'm level 200 something. I'm not going to get invaded. Nope, I got invaded. And I'm going to say right off the bat, I am not, you know, a king at PvP. Like, I can hold my own. I do okay. But I'm not somebody who's constantly searching for PvP. So that means that if you're going to be expecting high-level PvP play from me, it ain't going to happen. I mean, I hold my own, see here, but I knew I was going to die. My life was too low, and that whip, yeah, I was just having a hard time dealing with it. Plus, that first, when he caught me with that one swing of the sword, that's pretty much what ended the match for me. It took out way too much life. I think if I hadn't gotten hit by that, I might have survived. But, yeah, things were the way they were. So, yeah, it happens. This is Dark Souls. Invasions happen. Now, here's another rude surprise for me. Notice that I am now hollowed. I was not expecting this. I thought that when I kept that crown on, because I remember if you play through the first game and play through all the DLC, those crowns are supposed to keep you from hollowing. They get blessed by King Vendrick himself, and then you no longer have to worry about hollowing. Well, I found out the hard way that in New Game Plus, it doesn't keep you from hollowing, so I'm going to have to go through the DLC all over again in order to get that particular benefit. So, I'm now debating whether I should just keep the crown on at all, because to be perfectly honest with you, as far as, looks go, the whole fashion souls thing, I'd rather be wearing something else instead of the crown. Like a hood or something. Like, I usually wear a hood when I play this game. The only reason now to keep the crown on was, to keep from hollowing. And granted, it also gives you a few status boosts. Like, it boosts your attack, it boosts your defenses. And I might still keep that for that. Plus, somebody else was nice enough to tell me that the Iron King crown actually, after a few minutes, replenishes a use of a spell. And considering that I am making this spell using hybrid, like I'm using a dex build and an int build, once again, the shield bash failed me. I might use the Iron Crown. Sorry. Jumbling thoughts here. But yeah, I might use the Iron Crown. I don't know. I'll find out by the next game. But yeah, this is the way I normally deal with this spot. I lead this guy down here and deal with him by himself. Finish this fool off. And then I go up there and I deal with the halberd guy by himself. But that's the smarter way to deal with this area, especially if you're just starting out. If you're just starting the game. That's the best way to deal with this. Don't try to take on both of them at once unless you're used to the combat. So, now we're up here. And as you can see, there's a fog gate. You know what that means. We got a boss to deal with. Now, this is the Pursuer. I decided that I wanted to deal with him up here rather than deal with him earlier on, just to show you guys, because the last time I went through this playthrough, I think I dealt with him early, and this time I'm going to deal with him the way we're supposedly supposed to deal with him. Oh, I wish they didn't put that stupid red thing around the rim. The screen, whatever. I really like what they tried to convey with this guy. Notice his armor, all the faces attached to it. That was obviously on purpose. Of course, when they design something, it's on purpose. But they're trying to convey that this guy has a bunch of trapped souls within him. That he's been killing people and undead for a very long time, and has pretty much been absorbing their essence, so to speak. Now, this guy is, the first time we fought him, I still remember the first time people fought him, he was like, oh my god, he's dangerous, he's powerful, oh my god. He's not that hard, folks. He really isn't. This is all you gotta do. Walk to his left. Just circle strafe him to his left, or to your right, whichever is easier for you to remember. That's all you gotta do. Just circle around him to your right. The only dangerous move, I would say, is that first swing you saw him do over there. Because that one can be a bit hard to avoid when you try to roll past it. It's got a weird hitbox. And yeah, that spinning slash there does take out quite a bit of damage. And yes, that blue sword there can, if you get hit, curse you and take out tons of damage, but they're really easy to avoid. See, that was the only time I got hit, and that was because I was caught flat-footed and didn't get to his left side. But other than that, he's really easy. Really, that's it, guys. Sorry. Now, I will say that there was a little bit of confusion as to what he was supposed to be. Like, he's called the Pursuer, and what he's supposed to actually pursue, like, basically it's not just one guy, it's supposed to be a bunch of these guys, apparently, or at least from what I remember reading, and that they basically are supposed to roam the land hunting down undead, which is why you bump into others later on. It's not just one guy, it's a bunch of them, and they're supposed to be chasing you throughout the game. And they more or less did that, but apparently they did I think they went a little bit more, they made it more prominent in the second incarnation of this game, the Scholar of the First Sin version. Anyway, I was looking at the skyline again. I wanted you guys to notice the skyline and notice the architecture of this place. And how big this fort must have been. And how strong it was before it was turned into this. Also, I had forgotten to go up here first before I went up to the boss. You get some items there, a large soul of a proud knight and a radiant life gem. And then, just for shits and giggles, you can jump on here. This is where I like standing when I put my sign down to help people out with this boss. Because believe it or not, people need help with this boss. Most of the time what people do when they deal with him is they use the ballistas against him. You don't even need to do that. Just walk around him and strike. That's it. And then you see another giant corpse there, which is important. You need to remember this because we will be back here. There is some significance to this corpse being here. Or this giant tree or whatever it is we want to call them. And this is a last nothing happened because we need to get an item to interact with that later. Now, we're going to drop down here because there's an item to get. A series of items to get. You drop down here, and then over here. We'll end up with the Drangleic set, including the Drangleic sword, which is a really good set to get your hands on early on. Depending on your build, it may be too heavy for you to wear and still be able to move around reasonably well at the same time. And the sword itself may also be a little bit too heavy for you to use unless you up your strength stat or something. But if you're making a strength build or a tank type build, these are items that you're probably going to want to use. The Drangleic armor set is a really decent set, especially early on in the game. And the Drangleic sword is one of those weapons that can carry you all the way to the end of the game, in my opinion. I got a build right now that's pretty much just using that weapon, and he's pretty much at the end of the game, so. Once again, we're going to look at the skyline. Notice where in the sky the sun is. Notice the scope of the destruction here. I mean, this place got romped. See its broken statue head here. You see, like, you know, bits and pieces of them there. The ground here is shattered. It's like, what the hell happened here, you know? Also, if you're looking out, he's noticing all these different towers. I originally thought when I was looking out this way that I was looking at the next area that you get to go through, which is the Los Bastille. The Bastille. But I don't know if that's the case now. I don't know if that's really true. And also that place where the birds were circling around, I'm not entirely sure, and I think I'm wrong, but that could have been where the undead chariot guy is. And that nest is what we're going to need to use in order to get to the next area. But yeah, that place right there. That could just be an area that we already ran through. But I'm also wondering if that's where the hunter's copse is, like the huntsman's copse, or the huntsman's forest area is. I could again be wrong about that. And if I am wrong, please correct me. And then of course that's Drangleic Castle over there. So, that is pretty much the end of this. Tune in next time when we're going to go straight to the Bastille. Later.